In the hierarchy of influence, power has always been the foundation upon which all forms of success are built. When we look at the world through a Machiavellian lens, it becomes evident that the pursuit of money without the possession of power is an unstable endeavor, one that often leads to dependency, vulnerability, and eventual downfall. Power, in its purest sense, is not just political authority or physical dominance. It is the ability to control outcomes, influence decisions, and bend circumstances to one's will. In contrast, money is merely a tool, a symbol of exchange that loses its potency in the hands of the powerless. Those who chase wealth without first acquiring power often become servants to those who understand how to wield control. The Machiavellian mind recognizes that money follows authority, not the other way around. The essence of power precedes wealth lies in understanding leverage. Leverage is the invisible force that turns influence into results. When a person has power, they can dictate the flow of money, opportunity, and loyalty. The wealthy without power are like trees without roots. They may appear strong for a time, but they are easily uprooted by those who control the soil. This is why history remembers emperors, strategists, and political leaders more than merchants or bankers. The latter may have held riches, but the former decided who kept them. In a Machiavellian framework, control over the rules of the game is infinitely more valuable than winning a single round of it. The pursuit of money without understanding or attaining power is a form of short-sighted greed, a strategy that leaves one perpetually dependent on the systems designed by others. Power allows one to create systems, and systems generate sustainable wealth. Money without systems is temporary. It flows to whoever holds the power to direct it. Consider how the powerful can print, tax, or confiscate money at will, while the wealthy often have no choice but to comply. This dynamic reveals that power defines ownership. Without it, even your possessions can be taken from you. The truly powerful understand that it is not about chasing opportunities, but creating the structures that produce them. In Machiavellian terms, this is the art of positioning oneself as the puppeteer rather than the puppet. A man with power controls the environment that dictates economic behavior, while a man chasing money merely reacts to that environment. Power also provides a psychological advantage that money cannot. The powerful command respect even before they act. Their presence alters the behavior of those around them. Money might attract attention, but attention is fleeting. Respect born from power endures. People follow strength instinctively because it represents stability and authority. In the absence of power, money can even become a curse. It attracts envy, manipulation, and exploitation. Many who gain wealth without power become prisoners of their possessions, forever guarding their riches against those more ruthless and strategic than themselves. Machiavelli teaches that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both, and in the same way, it is better to be powerful than rich if one must choose. To acquire power, one must first master influence. Influence is the root of all forms of control. It allows an individual to shape perceptions and decisions without direct force. A person who understands human psychology, persuasion, and manipulation wields a type of power that transcends material wealth. They can make others act in alignment with their interests, even against their own. This is where dark psychology aligns with Machiavellian principles. True power is often subtle, operating through the mind rather than brute strength. Once influence is established, wealth follows naturally, because money gravitates toward control. Investors, followers, and allies flock to those who exude authority and confidence, not to those who desperately seek validation through wealth. The Machiavellian thinker understands timing as well. Power acquisition requires patience and calculation. One must learn to navigate systems of authority, build alliances, and appear indispensable before seeking financial gain. Those who rush to earn money without building influence find themselves enslaved by their own success. They work harder and yet remain dependent on those above them. The powerful, however, let systems and people work for them. This inversion of effort is the secret behind lasting wealth. It's not about how much one earns, but how much one controls. The powerless may accumulate riches, but their fate can change overnight with a single policy, betrayal, or shift in market forces. The powerful, on the other hand, survive such changes because they are the ones who cause them. Another layer of understanding lies in the psychology of authority. People are conditioned to equate power with competence and leadership. When someone demonstrates dominance, others instinctively attribute value to them, often transferring resources willingly. This means that power generates not only security but attraction. It draws wealth in the same way gravity pulls objects. Money without power repels stability. It is fragile because it lacks foundation. Those who possess true power rarely need to chase money because the world seeks their favor, partnerships, and guidance. Their influence turns every interaction into an opportunity for gain. Power also reshapes perception. Once you hold it, the same actions that would be questioned by others become accepted, even admired. This psychological shift amplifies your ability to accumulate and protect wealth. Machiavellian dark psychology emphasizes this point. Perception is a form of control, and control is the essence of power. When you master perception, you can create your own reality. Others will act according to the narrative you craft. This manipulation of perception is how empires are built, not merely through the collection of coins or assets, but through the command of belief and loyalty. Ultimately, power precedes wealth, is a law of nature as much as it is a principle of strategy. The lion does not chase, it positions itself to strike. The powerful do not run after money, they draw it in through dominance, influence, and control. In every hierarchy, corporate, political, or social, those who wield power define the value of money, dictate its flow, and determine who prospers or perishes within their systems. Therefore, before one seeks riches, one must seek the capacity to command them. In the Machiavellian understanding of power, control always outweighs possession. To possess something means to hold it temporarily, to have it in one's grasp for as long as circumstances allow. But to control something is to dictate its flow, to determine who possesses it, when, and under what conditions. Control transcends ownership. It allows one to command not only the physical object or resource itself, but also the systems, structures, and people that govern its distribution. The difference between control and possession is the difference between the ruler and the ruled. The one who controls the source of power, influence, or wealth is the one who can afford to lose possession without losing dominance. Machiavelli recognized that possession breeds complacency, while control sustains relevance and authority. Throughout history, the powerful have understood this principle instinctively. Kings did not hoard gold for the sake of owning it. They controlled the mint that produced it. The wealthy industrialists of the modern age did not simply possess factories. They controlled the labor, supply chains, and political connections that allowed those factories to operate. The distinction is subtle but absolute. Possession is surface-level power, while control operates beneath the surface, shaping outcomes invisibly. The Machiavellian strategist knows that those who chase ownership often become servants to those who master control. Possession ties one to maintenance, management, and defense. Control frees one to manipulate from above. It is the power of the puppeteer over the puppet, the unseen hand guiding the motion of others while remaining untouched. Control over resources begins with the ability to influence the mechanisms that allocate them. A person who owns wealth can lose it to economic collapse, political interference, or betrayal. But the person who controls the means of wealth creation can rebuild indefinitely. In Machiavellian terms, the goal is never to collect power or money, but to become indispensable to the systems that create them. This requires mastery over people's motivations, dependencies, and fears. When one controls these psychological levers, material control follows automatically. The ruler who commands loyalty, or the leader who influences behavior, wields a form of power greater than ownership because it does not rely on the physical possession of anything. Influence is a renewable form of control that cannot be stolen easily. Dark psychology views control as the ability to shape decisions without overt coercion. The most powerful form of control is not when people act out of fear or force, but when they act out of belief that they are doing what they want, when, in truth, they are fulfilling someone else's design. This is how Machiavellian thinkers operate. They ensure that others become emotionally or economically dependent on them, making rebellion costly and compliance profitable. In this dynamic, the controller becomes the architect of choice itself. Possession requires constant defense, but control requires only influence and perception. It is less visible, more sustainable, and infinitely more effective. Possession also limits flexibility. When one owns something, they become attached to it, bound by its protection and maintenance. Ownership ties up energy and focus, while control multiplies them. A Machiavellian strategist seeks leverage rather than ownership. Leverage allows him to direct vast amounts of resources without physically holding them. In the Machiavellian framework of power dynamics, psychological positioning is one of the most potent tools a strategist can wield. It is not about physical dominance or material superiority, but about the perception of authority, influence, and control that one projects into the minds of others. People respond not to who you are, but to who they believe you are. This is the heart of psychological positioning, the art of shaping how others see you, so that their reactions and decisions naturally serve your interests. In a world ruled by perception. The individual who controls the narrative controls reality. Machiavelli understood that appearances often outweigh truth in human affairs, and those who command perception command power itself. Psychological positioning begins with the understanding that the human mind is wired to seek hierarchy. People are constantly scanning their environment for cues of dominance and submission, leadership and followership. This instinct is ancient, rooted in our evolutionary biology, and it governs interactions in every social structure, from kingdoms and corporations to families and friendships. When someone exhibits the signs of authority, confidence, composure, decisiveness, and an aura of control, others instinctively defer. The Machiavellian strategist uses this to his advantage by mastering the symbols and behaviors that trigger obedience and respect. These signals do not have to be genuine, they only need to be convincing. As Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, it is not necessary to be virtuous, only to appear so when it benefits you. Similarly, one does not need real wealth to command influence. One only needs to project power, convincingly enough that others assume it exists. Perception becomes a weapon when it is used intentionally. The powerful understand that people believe what they see more than what they hear. A steady tone, controlled movements, and deliberate silence communicate far more authority than excessive words or flamboyant displays of wealth. The Machiavellian manipulator positions himself psychologically as someone who cannot be ignored, someone whose presence carries weight even when he says nothing. This creates an atmosphere of implicit control, where others begin to align their behavior to meet his expectations. The key lies in emotional composure. The person who appears emotionally unshakable is perceived as powerful because they are unreadable, and unreadable people are feared. In contrast, those who reveal anxiety, desperation, or insecurity invite others to dominate them. In dark psychology, psychological positioning is the manipulation of perception at both the conscious and subconscious levels. It involves crafting an image so strong that others internalize your dominance without questioning it. This can be done through symbols of authority, titles, associations, confident language, or even subtle status cues that signal superiority. Once people accept your position as higher in the hierarchy, they begin to justify your power to themselves. This internal justification makes your control over them more stable, because they believe they are following someone worthy, not someone manipulative. The Machiavellian mind thrives on this paradox: to make others believe they are choosing freely, when in truth they are following the path you designed for them. Psychological positioning also relies heavily on the control of contrast. Power is always relative. You only appear dominant in comparison to something weaker or less certain. A skilled strategist knows how to create contrast through timing and environment. He ensures that his confidence stands out against others' hesitation, his composure against others' chaos. By amplifying the weaknesses of others and highlighting his own strengths, he engineers a perception of superiority. In negotiations, leadership, or social influence, this contrast determines who commands and who obeys. Even silence can serve as a form of contrast. When everyone else rushes to speak, the one who waits appears more in control. Another layer of psychological positioning is consistency. People are drawn to stability and predictability because it creates a sense of safety. The Machiavellian strategist maintains an image that never cracks, no matter the circumstance. He may adapt his tactics, but never his perceived authority. This consistency reinforces belief. Once people associate you with control and confidence, they begin to see every action you take as further proof of your power. Over time, your reputation becomes self-sustaining. Others spread your influence for you, repeating stories and impressions that magnify your image, even when you are not present. In this sense, a reputation is the shadow of psychological positioning. It extends your influence far beyond your immediate reach. However, the true Machiavellian does not simply maintain an image. He actively engineers dependency through it. Once others begin to see you as a figure of authority, they will seek your approval, validation, and guidance. This dependency strengthens your control, because people who depend on your perception of them will act to maintain your favor. They begin to censor themselves, to seek your acknowledgement, and to internalize your standards. This is power in its most subtle form. When others police their own behavior in alignment with your expectations. At this stage, psychological positioning transforms into psychological domination, achieved not through threats or coercion, but through belief. In Machiavellian dark psychology, the manipulation of belief is the highest form of control. When people believe you are powerful, they will behave as though you are, and that belief sustains itself through their actions. This phenomenon can be seen in leaders, influencers, and even in personal relationships. The more someone invests in the image you project, the harder it becomes for them to question it, because doing so would challenge their own judgment. Thus, psychological positioning binds others through their need for consistency. They must continue to believe in your authority to maintain their own sense of correctness. Another critical aspect of psychological positioning is selective accessibility. Power loses its mystique when it becomes too available. The Machiavellian strategist understands that scarcity enhances value. By controlling who has access to him and when, he creates an aura of exclusivity that amplifies his perceived importance. This is why powerful individuals often seem distant or enigmatic. Their absence creates curiosity, and curiosity breeds attention. Attention, in turn, feeds influence. The less people understand about you, the more they project their own assumptions, often imagining you to be greater than you are. This illusion is one of the most effective weapons in psychological warfare. Psychological positioning also extends to how one handles opposition. The Machiavellian strategist does not react emotionally to criticism or conflict. Instead, he uses opposition to reinforce his perceived strength. By responding with calm authority, or even strategic indifference, he signals that he operates on a higher level. This non-reactivity makes adversaries appear smaller and less composed, strengthening his dominance in the eyes of observers. The more others see you as unbothered by challenges, the more they believe you are untouchable. This perception alone can deter attacks and attract followers seeking stability and strength. In every sphere of human interaction, psychological positioning determines who leads and who follows, who commands and who obeys. It is not merely about external gestures, but about mastering the subtle language of dominance, the cues that influence how others perceive reality through control of perception, emotion, and reaction. The Machiavellian manipulator crafts a persona that becomes a gravitational force, pulling others into his orbit without resistance or awareness in the Machiavellian pursuit of dominance. The tension between security and exposure defines the longevity of one's power. To possess wealth, influence, or status without securing it through control and foresight is to stand in the open battlefield without armor. Security in this context does not merely mean physical safety or the protection of assets. It means the establishment of structures, perceptions, and alliances that prevent vulnerability. Exposure, on the other hand, represents the cracks through which threats, whether political, psychological, or social, can enter and dismantle one's position. Machiavelli understood that a prince's downfall rarely comes from overt enemies, but from unseen weaknesses that invite exploitation. In the same way, wealth without power exposes its holder to manipulation, extortion, and loss, while power itself creates the shield that ensures stability and survival. Security is the fortress of power. It allows one to act freely, without fear of retaliation or collapse. The Machiavellian strategist knows that every form of success attracts envy and aggression, and therefore, the preservation of one's position is as critical as its acquisition. The powerful must design layers of defense, some visible to deter challenges, others invisible to ensnare threats before they arise. This defense is not limited to military or physical protection. It extends into the psychological and political spheres. The powerful secure their image, so that even rumors cannot destabilize them. They secure their alliances so that betrayal becomes costly for others. They secure their wealth not by hiding it, but by distributing it strategically, investing in loyalty, influence, and control. In contrast, those who merely possess wealth but lack power are constantly exposed to those who seek to take it from them. Exposure invites predation. Human nature, as Machiavelli often observed, is opportunistic. When others sense weakness or instability, they act upon it. This is the law of nature, the silent current that governs human interaction. The exposed are the hunted, while the secure are the hunters. In dark psychology, this principle mirrors the concept of dominance hierarchies. Individuals unconsciously assess who is safe to challenge and who must be obeyed. The powerful project security through composure, mystery, and strategic control. Their stability makes others hesitate. In contrast, those who display uncertainty, emotional volatility, or desperation signal exposure, inviting exploitation. Thus, maintaining psychological security becomes as essential as maintaining financial or physical protection. Machiavellian strategy teaches that true security lies not in isolation, but in control of perception. A fortress of stone can be breached, but a fortress of belief is unbreakable. If people believe you are untouchable, they will behave as though you are, and this belief itself becomes protection. This is why rulers, leaders, and manipulators throughout history have cultivated an image of inevitability, a sense that their downfall is impossible, that their influence is woven into the fabric of order. Such perception dissuades rebellion and prevents opposition before it begins. The illusion of invulnerability becomes self-fulfilling because perception shapes behavior. The secure individual, therefore, does not merely protect himself through barriers. He constructs an aura that prevents the need for barriers at all. Exposure often arises from complacency. When individuals acquire wealth or success, they tend to overestimate their safety. They reveal too much, trust too easily, and underestimate the envy of others. This openness becomes their undoing. The Machiavellian thinker never assumes that his position is unassailable. He assumes the opposite. He treats every alliance as conditional, every advantage as temporary, and every success as a potential source of danger. By expecting betrayal, he is never surprised by it. By preparing for attack, he ensures his survival. Security is maintained not through static defense, but through dynamic awareness. Constant adaptation to shifting power currents. The exposed, in contrast, cling to stability as if it were permanent, failing to realize that the world rewards vigilance and punishes comfort. There is also a psychological dimension to security that transcends external protection. Internal security, emotional control, self-mastery, and detachment is the foundation upon which all outer forms of defense are built. A person who cannot govern their emotions cannot secure their position. Anger reveals weakness, fear exposes vulnerability, and attachment makes one predictable. The Machiavellian strategist remains calm under chaos because composure itself is a weapon. Those who appear unbothered project invincibility, discouraging confrontation. Their security is rooted in the perception that nothing can shake them, even when they are under threat. This stoic posture reinforces their authority and destabilizes opponents who rely on emotional reactions to gain leverage. Control of information is another critical aspect of security. Machiavelli advised rulers to guard their intentions carefully, revealing only what serves their interests. Information is power, and to expose one's thoughts, plans, or weaknesses is to hand over weapons to others. The powerful maintain opacity. They let others speculate but never confirm. This uncertainty keeps adversaries cautious and prevents coordinated resistance. The exposed individual, however, speaks too much, reveals too easily, and mistakes transparency for trust in politics, business, and personal life. This exposure gives enemies the tools they need to destroy. The Machiavellian mind values secrecy not as deception but as protection. Knowledge is currency, and the fewer who possess it, the greater one's leverage. Security also requires the management of loyalty. Loyalty is never assumed, it is engineered. Those in power must ensure that the people around them depend on them for their own success. Dependence breeds obedience. The Machiavellian strategist secures his allies by making them beneficiaries of his strength, not equals to it. He distributes power carefully, never enough to challenge his authority, but sufficient to bind others to his survival. This form of strategic generosity transforms potential rivals into protectors. The exposed, in contrast, rely on promises of friendship or morality, fragile illusions that dissolve under pressure. True security lies in constructing a network of interests so intertwined that betrayal becomes self-destructive. Machiavelli's worldview recognizes that fear and respect are essential components of security. The secure ruler is both loved and feared. But when forced to choose, fear offers greater protection. Respect born from fear ensures compliance without the need for constant enforcement. Exposure, however, comes from the pursuit of love, approval, or popularity, which are unstable emotions subject to change. The powerful understand that emotional dependence on others' opinions weakens control. They cultivate distance, ensuring that admiration never turns into familiarity. Familiarity breeds exposure, and exposure invites ruin. In the end, the Machiavellian principle of security versus exposure teaches that true power is not about what one holds, but about what one can protect. Wealth, influence, and status are meaningless without the structures that keep them safe. The powerful build fortresses, not only around their assets, but within their minds, ensuring that no external force can easily destabilize them. The exposed, however, are at the mercy of others' will, their fate determined by forces they failed to anticipate or contain. Power, in the Machiavellian and dark psychological sense, is the unseen force that governs every aspect of human interaction. It shapes economies, dictates relationships, and defines the boundaries between leaders and followers. Money, status, and success are all transient reflections of it, mere byproducts of one's ability to control perception, influence others, and secure one's position. A pursuit of wealth without first attaining power is like building a castle on Sunday, impressive for a moment, but destined to collapse under the weight of external pressures. Those who understand that power must come first recognize that control, not possession, is the essence of mastery. The powerful need not chase wealth, they attract it. They understand that perception determines reality, that security is the foundation of freedom, and that influence over others is the truest form of ownership. To gain power is to gain leverage over every exchange, whether material, emotional, or social. It is the ability to dictate terms rather than accept them. Machiavellian strategy and dark psychology reveal that power is not always visible. It operates through subtlety, patience, and calculated intent. It lies in the capacity to shape belief, to manipulate loyalty, and to remain untouchable through composure and foresight. Those who wield it quietly command those who merely possess wealth loudly. Power is the fortress, money is the ornament. Without the first, the second is exposed to decay. In the end, the path to enduring dominance is not found in chasing riches or recognition, but in cultivating control over oneself, over others, and over the systems that govern both. The one who holds power defines the game, while the one who seeks money plays it.